Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to NOLA Theater Talk. My name is Alan Smason, and I want to thank you for being here tonight. We have a very exciting night up ahead of us, and we're going to talk in specifics about a brand new recording that's available as a digital download, also available as a CD for those of us old-timers who still like to use CDs, and that is Marguerite. You can see the CD cover there. We're going to talk about Marguerite and what Marguerite is all about. Marguerite was a one-woman show musical that played, I would call it off-Broadway, absolutely, but played in New York City in 2019. Again, it starred one of the people we're going to meet, obviously, in just a few moments, Cady Huffman. Again, we're very proud to have invited her and have her accept tonight to be a part of this broadcast. But Marguerite, as you can well see, is a product of two creative individuals, Anton Dudek and Michael Cooper. They're going to join us a little bit later, too. But without any further ado, let me go ahead and, if you don't mind, let me please bring on the lady that might be considered, she was in a show that they talked about the King of Broadway, but I like to kind of think about her as the Queen of Broadway. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Cady Huffman to the show.
I don't want Patti LuPone to be mad at me, so
she's not going to be mad. Let me take that lovely cover out of the way. And again, you are right now in New York, correct? You're or Connecticut, right?
I'm in Connecticut, yeah.
Connecticut. Mm-hmm. So you have moved to a new place because you used to be sort of further up.
I was in the Bronx. Yeah. I mean, I've lived all over different parts of New York City, but now I live in a house. This pandemic has suddenly forced me to live more out in nature.
I want to remind everybody, in case they had a question or if they wanted to have a comment, that they need to just go to StreamYard.com/Facebook. If they go there, they'll be able to leave comments or what have you. We appreciate them doing that because it allows us to see who it is at the time they make those comments. If they don't, StreamYard being a third-party proprietary kind of a situation, Facebook doesn't necessarily allow names to move freely back and forth. So that's why we ask you to do that. So, Cady, you and I have been friends on Facebook a long time. I've known you. And it goes back even further. Although we didn't actually know each other, in a personal way or on Facebook or whatever. But I have to say that the very first time I got to experience you was sort of vicariously, because my mother was a very major, I guess you would say, supporter of the producers.
Yeah.
And of course, I knew Will Rogers' Follies, et cetera. You had been in that as well. So I was familiar that we had a record store on St. Charles, as I mentioned. So we knew all the shows and we knew what to promote, et cetera. But the producers came along after we had closed our record store. So we weren't actually able to sell the original cast recording as far as it goes. But we were familiar with it. My mother went to see the producers at a time when tickets were like really expensive, and she ended up seeing the producers, I think, 5 times.
Nice.
And she loved it. Now, why do I say that? Well, my mother had been an avid collector of Al Hirschfeld, and actually had her own portrait done of Al Hirschfeld. She has quite a number of Hirschfelds scattered around her residence, and I would say it's one of the largest collections of Hirschfeld in the country. Wow. So it's, this is my connection to Broadway. So one of the very first ones that she did, that she got to do, and Hirschfeld was always considered, to her, they were kind of like always, two personalities. She got him to do this one, and there you are.
That's me.
Now I know it's not a great likeness in the sense that there you are, Nathan Lane, Matthew Broderick, and of course above the curtain there is Mel Brooks. Now. Yeah. You may not be able to see it, but underneath those beautiful legs of yours, you can see something that's written out by Hirschfeld. And I'm going to see if I can go a little bit closer right now and show you. It says, "To Annette." Hirschfeld. That is a personal note written by the author. And she was so impressed with the producers. And I want you to understand that she actually commissioned a producer's original pen and ink drawing by Al Hirschfeld. So she has 2. That one was a lithograph in color, and the one that she has here, which is the one that you probably have never seen before, is one that she commissioned, and you can see Mel Brooks in the Nazi uniform, if you will, Nathan, and of course Matthew there, and there you are again in all your splendor on the phone. And I guess is that Roger Bart in the back?
Yep, little car movie.
Anyway, so anyway, all of that. This one, of course, is original, obviously much more expensive. But that's every time I go to my mother's house, I see your visage there, via Al Hirschfeld. So there. And again, just so people understand, you and I have known each other. You actually came down to New Orleans in 2017. And I was so fortunate. I was lucky. I was able to bring you out and about. There we are at I told you, a great place to go, Tujague's. They've moved now, but Tujague's at that time is still run by Mark Latter, whose father, Stephen Latter, was a good friend of mine. And I brought you, do you remember I brought you to the Jazz Museum in New Orleans? And who did you get to meet there?
I did.
Deacon John Moore. Now, again, Deacon John is one of our great celebrities. I mean, if you are one of the great celebrities of Broadway, Deacon John would be one of our great singers. And I would say that he's the one who's been around. Irma Thomas and Deacon John Moore are probably the ones who have been around the longest and have established careers longer time. But here you are in New Orleans on the ferry. I said, you've got to take a ferry ride from Algiers going into New Orleans, right? And there's
oh my God, I was on a 3-week, drive. I had driven to California and I was driving down to New Orleans. I just was not concerned about makeup or anything. And you're showing all these pictures.
Your inner beauty shows through. I don't care. And I had fun. It was great to show off the city because
you were a great host.
You also never get to leave New York. I mean, you go to California to visit family, but you were always in New York. You were working. And so, it was like a period in between where all of a sudden you didn't have anything to do. You hadn't yet accepted the job at the Ambassador doing Mama Matron, so you had some time. So anyway, before we get going on any of the shows that we've seen, and before I bring in Anton and Michael, I wanted to first tell you that in your honor tonight, I made a Manhattan. So this is a special. You know who Nick and Nora were?
Sure, of course.
Okay, so this is a Nick and Nora glass, a special martini glass.
Beautiful.
And yeah, very nice. And what are you having tonight? Because I know it's a little libation for you. And
it is. I'm having a little Modelo Pale Ale tonight.
Well, I love it. And there's nothing pale.
I don't drink much. Yeah, so it's like I make it a little loopy.
So I wanted to just let people know that you're going to be here tonight. We're going to talk about Marguerite and talk about the conception and how it all started. And I want to go back with Anton and Michael, but just a couple of trips down memory lane. You may remember this trip that we took. That was to see the Great Comet. We saw that night. I think that was maybe 2017. And then earlier in the day, we had seen a very wonderful show. I wished it had stuck around a little bit longer. It didn't win any Tonys, but we got to see Andy Carl in Groundhog Day, and you had to rush off that day after we saw Great Comet, and we were on the stage for Great Comet. It was just a wonderful experience. You got one of those little shakers, didn't you? Didn't you get to get?
I did. It was a beautiful expence.
So,
I love both those shows.
Yeah, I mean, I was so glad to be able to bring you have experience.
Thank you. Yeah.
But the day after that we saw Groundhog Day, I went back to visit, and I did get to see Andy Carl after all.
Yeah, so he was fantastic.
He was just incredible. And he was performing, if everybody remembers, at that time, he was performing with a cast on his leg. And he had done Rocky and done all those fight scenes and never gotten hurt. And he does this Groundhog Day show, and that was it. And then in 2018, I think we saw Head Over Heels. Yep. And I think this may be where we were together to Head Over Heels. And then a little bit later in 2019, I know you were showing your inner King Kong here.
Yes.
And then you and I, had a little pose there. Somebody took a picture of us, and we were so happy there. But yes, you are a staple of Broadway. And when I get up there, I'm happy to be able to take part in enjoying it.
Oh my God, you're so generous. You're so generous, and I get to do so much. You were such a great host down in New Orleans, and it's
very kind. But I have to say, the last time I was there. And we're going to, I had tickets to see Moulin Rouge, and I tried to get you with all my might to go, and you said, I can't. I said, what in the world? Moulin Rouge is like the biggest thing right now. And you said, I've got to do a rehearsal for Marguerite. And that was really the first time I heard about it.
Is that what it was? Oh my
goodness. Yes,
goodness.
It was. It was a rehearsal for Marguerite. And you only obligingly went with me on that last Saturday night I was in town to see Oklahoma because you hadn't seen it, and you were hoping to see your friend Mary Tesla, right?
Testa, yeah.
Mary Tesla. She wasn't in the cast that night, but we saw the most amazing one woman ballet in that show, and the show was fun. And we got to eat the vegetarian chili, I think, during the
and the cornbread.
Yeah,
cornbread and veggie chili, definitely.
So that was the one time, but you let me, but you were so, and I'm going to tell Anton and Michael's, I'm about to bring them in. You were so focused on the show. You didn't want any pictures taken. You were not your usual jovial, carefree self. You wanted really to concentrate on that role, and you didn't want to get out of the moment, and you were just really being nice to me and going to see Oklahoma. I know.
Well, I mean, as I said, you're so generous, and I wanted to see Oklahoma, and I completely blame Anton for my misery. So yes,
all right. That's a good way to bring him in. Anton, here you go. And again, let me see if I can bring in Michael as well. Anton, first off, you're the Canadian in the group here, right?
Yes, and I will say it is my greatest joy causing Cady Huffman. Every time she's miserable, I have the most amazing theatrical experience. So
Anton, tell me a little bit, being the Canadian, what drew you to the story about Marguerite Bourgeys, and again, down here in New Orleans, being Cajun country, we spell it Bourgeois, but she spelled it Bourgeys, correct?
Geoys. Yeah.
Geoy. Okay, I have to correct that. No problem. But yeah, tell me. So, what was the story? How did you get? What was the story about Marguerite? What drew you to it?
Yeah, well, so two things. So I was born in Montreal, and being sort of like a good little gay boy in Montreal, I was attracted to Marguerite for two reasons. So the first is her name is on plaques sort of all over the city. And I was very young when I was in Montreal, so I didn't know who she was, but I saw her likeness everywhere and her name everywhere. And I was like, there's this woman who sort of is all around the city, and his name is ubiquitous with it. And then later on, she's always been in my imagination because I knew that today about 3/4 of Quebecois people can still trace their lineage to the women who Marguerite helped come to New France, which is what Quebec was called at the time. So basically what had happened is, I just sort of want to say this in a nutshell, which is that France, and to sort of take this with a grain of salt, obviously, because I think, colonization, obviously.
We're in Louisiana. We know all about colonization. Okay.
Yeah. So France was sort of looking at the map, and they were like, we don't understand, because we own at least twice, if not 3 times as much land as Spain or England, and definitely more than the Dutch did, after everyone was trying to colonize what is now North America. And they were like, how come we have all this land that we claim as our own, but we have no population and we have no settlements? We just have these 3 sort of small forts. Well, the truth is that most of the people who came over from France were male, and they were all fur trappers. And so they weren't interested in settling. They had to follow beaver, which was the primary thing they were trapping, into the forest. And so they didn't want to settle down. Whereas, the other sort of people who were colonizing were farmers, and they were creating settlements. And sort of they realized this. The other thing, which I think is interesting, is that most of the people who colonized what we know now as America were people who were fleeing England, looking to sort of start their own kind of like, religious sects, which at that time were very rebellious, right? And in order to emigrate to New France, you not only had to swear allegiance to the French crown, you had to prove you were a Catholic. Right. So there were a lot of rebels coming over from other countries who were like, I want this land so I can create my own sort of new world, right? But in France, I felt like it was more of an economic thing where they were coming over to hunt beaver, and that was it. So there were no women who came over because, they would all just be left by themselves while the men were chasing beaver in the forest. So the king was like, this is a problem, right? So he said, we're going to find these up to 1,000 women and give them dowries and send them over. And they were women who, for whatever reason, were not married in France, there is very little research about them because for the longest time, the rumor is that these women were prostitutes. However, there has been DNA research done in the past couple decades that reveal. I'm sorry, can I say this on your live show?
Anything you want to say.
Okay. But there's been DNA research done that prostitutes at this time in Paris in the late 17th century, there was a large population that was suffering from this venereal disease that rendered women sterile. So there is no way that the king would have sent sterile women over if what he was trying to do was populate New France. So for a lot of time, people didn't research them in the same way with Australia, where everybody, the rumor was they're all criminals, right?
They called it the French disease for a reason, right? And so it was
so these women came over, and I knew that Marguerite Bourgeys basically helped these women sort of learn how to do household management, and then would sort of have these kind of parties where they met fur trappers, and the idea was that they're all supposed to get married off before the men went again. And she kind of like captured my heart because I felt like in some ways she was like the great mother of Quebec, and she's sort of all over the city. And then, Montreal, the Montreal I know has always been a very queer welcoming city. And her spirit sort of locked in with that. So I wanted to sort of look into this woman who kind of was the mother of the city and sort of the woman who kind of helped populate the Canada that I grew up in. And so that was where the idea came from, was to celebrate that.
And I want to find out from Michael, since he's in the room now as well. Michael, how did you meet this wonderful Canadian who convinced you, obviously, to do a story about this lady who became a saint?
A director introduced us, and we met for coffee one afternoon, and he pitched this idea to me, and I was fascinated by her life, but I was like, how will this work as a one-woman show? I was like, does she lay across a piano with a martini and sing about this? Like, it was framed as this sort of one-woman cabaret, and to be honest, I was terrified. Like, I was like, I don't know how I will set this to music. I don't know how we'll engage an audience for 90 minutes. And sort of the parenthetical aside to this is that I had been working for many years as a lyricist and not as a composer. I sort of came out of the closet as a composer with this piece, which I have Anton to thank for believing in me. So when we met and he pitched it, I jumped in blindly. I think a friend of mine at the time had given me a little frame that I have in my apartment, or I moved out of the city, so I don't have that frame anymore, but it was like, jump and the net will appear. And I was like, you know what, let's see what this is. I had written lyrics for a Jewish wedding musical on Broadway called It Should Have Been You.
I know that.
Yeah. So this was an entirely different world, but and then once I started reading about her, and once Anton started giving me little bits of what he was coming up with, she spoke to my soul, and the music just poured out of me. I really do feel like this score was channeled in some way. Like
And It Should Have Been You. You were with other people working on the project doing the music.
Right.
This is your first project where you actually did the music entirely on your own, correct?
Correct. Yeah, I didn't write any of the music for It Should Have Been You. I was brought in sort of late in the process and did the opening number. And so when it was announced for Broadway, I was sort of terrified that like it would be cut, right? But since I was last in the process, my song stayed in it. So now I switched gears, and now I've found this whole new career as a composer, which is what I've always really wanted to do.
Before we go on, let's find out what you're having to bring in the room tonight. So Michael, what did you bring in?
I brought in a Cosmo because it's the 1990s Sex and the City.
Of course. And Anton, what did you bring in? I don't know if it's going to be anything to do with anything Catholic, so let's find out.
Well, it's a glass of Saint-Emilion, which is a French wine,
yeah.
And if you'll indulge me for 1 second, Alan, I only drink red wine because I read this story that red wine was created in ancient Greece by the god Dionysus, because what happened was his male lover Empelus died, and so what he did is he pulled a vine from Empelus's heart that then bloomed grapes. And then when he made wine from the grapes, it was when he drank it, he experienced the love that he felt for Impellus, even though now he's dead. So I was like, this is why gay men like red wine.
Well, I don't know. Maybe we'll have a lot of women out there who use that as an excuse as well. But yeah, that's very good.
Do
so
it.
we have a little beer, we have a little wine, we have a little vodka, and a little rye whiskey. So we've got
covering everything.
The whole
We're good little drinkers.
Although I will say much of the score was sponsored by the sidecar. We had many sidecars.
Yes. I know the sidecar. So
yeah, I was not drinking during Marguerite. There was no freaking way. It's like, no.
So again, I want everybody to understand we're talking about Marguerite. Again, Marguerite just came out on Broadway Records. Those of you who didn't get a chance to see the cover, there it is. Once again, Cady's name is above the title, and Anton and Michael's right below there. And again, we're talking about this one-woman show, and I guess the journey, in getting it to fruition, and all that was entailed. I know that this was a work that originally was titled, and I guess you changed it because you were getting ready to bring it to New York, and maybe you thought maybe had some second thoughts. Maybe you can tell me what it was called originally. Second to None, correct? NUN.
Yes.
So tell me a little bit about that. Was at a festival for the 350th anniversary of Montreal or Canada, and the 150th anniversary or something. I'm trying to remember again.
The first presentation of it was actually in New York at a off-Broadway theater called Playwrights Home, and Cady actually did the first reading of it. And I think what had happened was I think I can say this. I was working on this big commercial musical and not having such a great time. And I was like, I just want to write like a one-person show that we can just do, and it'll be really great, and we can just have people we love involved in it. And so I found Michael, and we did this. And then we were saying, like, I had worked with Cady on a couple of readings before previous musicals. And Cady's just so, her soul sort of pours out through her pores and her voice and her eyes when she's on stage, and she has this star quality, and you can't take your eyes off her, and she's just remarkable. But I had known her primarily as a comedic actress, and I was like, she has such a big soul and heart, and she's so talented a singer, and I was like, I bet she could do this crazy 90-minute dramatic role. And I was like, let's just ask her, let's see, and she said yes. And I think I told Cady, I was like, it's just an in-house reading, Cady. It's just for the writers. And then of course the theater was like, Tony winner, Cady Huffman, and new musical. And I think like 200 people showed up to the reading, and I thought Cady was going to kill me. Because I was like, it's just an in-house reading, Cady. And there's like 200 people. And she's like, And then of course she goes out.
You've been lying to me ever since. So, it's like,
hey, it worked. It worked.
Exactly. Your lies don't bother me.
But that reading was really wonderful, and then we had gone on to do a couple of things, versions of it, which Cady wasn't available for. But I think originally we called it Second to None because it seemed like, how do you sell a show about a nun, right? So we're like, we'll make it funny, and it was more like a cabaret show. And then
people will think they're coming to see nonsense, and then but it felt like then the piece revealed what it.
Okay.
To be in it.
The piece took on a more serious, I should just say more complex, like human tone, and sort of felt like Second to None suddenly was a little schmackty. And so then finally when Cady was able to come back to the project, when he came to New York, we changed the title to Marguerite, which felt more appropriate.
Well, it's interesting. Cady is bona fide Catholic. I mean, there's no doubt about that, but the rest of us are not necessarily. I'm Jewish. I know that Michael and Anton, you are.
I'm partly Jewish. Yeah.
Partly, yeah. I knew that there was a little bit
Jewish,
of
but yes.
Okay, so it's interesting that we've got two almost all Jewish, people who are creatives here writing about a Canadian saint, and she did become a saint. It's so all of her work was of course given the attention that it deserved much later on by, I guess, the Vatican. Do you remember when she became a saint? Were you
it was
living
in the 80s? It was in
83.
I think so. Yeah, in the late '80s, and she was I want to say she was sainted on Halloween, which was very funny. But she was the first female Canadian saint. Yeah.
Yeah, and so it's a tribute to her. I wanted to go ahead and I had a link ready to go for the YouTube that you had sent me, and it just happened that my Outlook died. And of course, why not? You know, that's what's supposed to happen right in the middle of a live broadcast. You're supposed to have your email die. So in the meantime, I'm going to see if I can find it on my. Was that a private link, or could I look that up if I? That you sent me.
I can email it to you again if that's helpful. But it's if you look on YouTube, it should be.
Yeah, I probably will just look it on YouTube and if it's up, because I know it was really lovely that you. Now, why? I guess the question is, why would you put the whole thing up on YouTube? Because it basically is the entire album.
So that's like an auto-generated thing from the cast album when it gets released. So it's another way for people to engage with the song. So that wasn't me, but the cast album, when it gets sort of digitally pushed out, that it goes to YouTube. I
got you. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I wondered about. There's so many things that go out there because I wanted to.
So we will never make a nickel.
No, someone is counting those streams, but I don't know where those streams go.
Oh, okay, right, exactly. Who the heck is counting all those streams?
Well, you know what? Go ahead and send it to me because I can't seem to find it. When I look up Marguerite, it just doesn't show up. So we'll just go.
Sure.
But again, for those of you just joining us, we want to thank our guest tonight. We have in the house, as it were, the creative team for Marguerite, who would be, of course, Michael Cooper, Anton Dudek, and, of course, the star of the show, Cady Huffman. And yes, Cady, your first name is Tony Award winner, isn't that right?
That's right.
You never lose that name. So, yes. So,
you know, I win every time.
Yes. Well, you know what? In my heart, you do, for sure. So, again, if you sent that to me, I appreciate that. You know, whatever we do, I'll try to go ahead and see if I can find that link and get it back up again. So I've had a wonderful time listening to the show. And again, I would describe it, you know, you said it's sort of a one-woman cabaret, but it runs the gamut. You've got ballads in it. You've got these powerful – and I guess I have to ask Michael, you work with cello and some other instrumentation in this. Had you ever worked with a cello before, which so emulates the human voice?
Not really. When we first started talking about what the sound of the piece would be, it just felt like there needed to be another instrument and another voice. And obviously we wanted to keep the band intimate and small. But this was my first time writing for cello. I worked really closely with my musical supervisor and orchestrator, Joseph Treffler, to do that. But yeah, no, that was my first time writing for a cello, and the cello is like the other character in the show.
It very much is, you know, because I'm sure that when it was presented, and again, let's let everybody know where it was presented. It was in essentially a church, correct?
Absolutely in a church.
So let me ask you:
church.
When you present a secular work about a religious figure, what kind of hoops do you have to jump through to get them to allow you to perform?
Well, it was not a Catholic church.
That helps.
Yeah. And I believe what you do is you pay them.
Yeah.
And I think that they were a little naive too about, you know, putting on a show in their church. It was a perfect setting. I mean, it was a beautiful little church.
Vaulted ceilings. I mean, very, very tall.
Vaulted, very old. A lot of
the
wood,
acoustics were amazing.
Yeah, it was really beautiful.
Since it's such an intimate work, was she mic'd? I mean, or was it just you belting? How was it? How did it work?
There was a sort of enhanced sound because of the depth of the space.
I was not mic'd, but I was. There were mics.
There were mics, so it was an omnidirectional kind of a.
Yeah.
So
and it did not end up a cabaret. You guys would not describe this as a cabaret. No, that's how it started. Conceived that way, but it is a show.
It really is a fully realized one-woman musical, and I wouldn't call it anything less than a musical. You know,
it's almost an opera. I mean, it's Cady really, singing and speaking the entire time.
Yeah,
Right.
it would. I think I mean, because it does have elements. I mean, it's definitely operetta. It's absolutely operetta. It has even elements of a little, you know, what's the famous operetta guy who did, Pirates of Penzance?
Gilbert and
Those
Sullivan.
guys, Gilbert and
About?
Sullivan. I mean, not that it is like Gilbert and Sullivan, but there are definitely moments that are sort of paying homage to that kind of. Right? I mean, did you guys think about what did you guys think about?
There's huge sort of musical sequences where Anton and I worked really hard to interweave the dialogue and the music. But in some ways, I mean, it's sort of in the scope and the scale of it is almost like a Les Mis or that sort of big romantic sweep. But then it's only one person singing the entire thing. So.
I always just think of that lop their heads off. It's very Gilbert and Sullivan to me.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's very there's a lot of words, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of words. There's a lot of notes.
And that was actually the first song that we wrote and tried with you. That's the first day I met you was when you came in to sing that demo in the studio.
What did I say?
You just were like, "What is this?"
What are you doing?
Yeah. I mean, I have been such a huge fan of Cady's for so long, so I was so thrilled to have her come in and sing this. But of course, like the thing that I'm presenting her is the thing that like is not anything that you would imagine that Cady would sing, and Cady just nailed it. And then what was so wonderful about working with Cady is she really helped shape. I mean, I fit the score to her voice like a glove. Like we worked very closely to track the character's journey. So I remember when we went into rehearsal, Cady, you said, I think that the show should start out in a very high place. Like it should be almost Julie Andrews when you come at it. It's in this range. And as the story moves on, as the narrative goes on, you feel her age throughout the piece. So that affected all of the keys and the way that the music, sits in your voice. So that was.
I said that?
Yeah. I mean, we started checking it. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because Marguerite does go from being in her late 20s to late 60s over the course of the play. And it was sort of wonderful to watch Cady's voice kind of slowly move down with every song. And you felt the time passing, even though the only real focal point that you have for our physical realization of this is the actress herself. So it's sort of remarkable in that way to feel like you've gone on this enormous epic experience of 40 years and 90 minutes, and a lot of that was the vocal work as well as the performance.
So we have. I want everybody to know we have 4 selections we're going to play tonight that we're going to be listening into, and as soon as I can get my mail to cooperate and stop spinning around with a little pinwheel, I'll be able to play them for you and hopefully get to the link. But as of right now. I'm having no success, and I just wanted to apologize. I had it lined up, and for some reason it didn't. And I'm going to keep looking. I'm going to look to see maybe if I can look at it.
Can I
go ahead.
put it in the private chat? I sent it to you, but I wonder if I sent the link into the chat. Would you be able to copy it from there?
I would hope so, but go right ahead. Absolutely, that would be helpful.
Let's try that.
All right.
Hey, Geek Squad.
There we go. You're on top of the ball there. Okay. And so as soon as okay. So I'm going to play the very first song right now. Is one that I think that a lot of people in New Orleans especially are going to love, because it has so much to do with what we have here. So I want to see if I can get this thing to share out, but I have to. Let's see if I can skip that. There we go. All right, here we go. This is something that we are affected by here in New Orleans all the time, and it is something that if you live in New Orleans, you're going to know about this. So let me see if I can get this. Yes, I think
I can hardly wait.
It's totally going to be Willamania.
Oh my gosh, the suspense is killing me.
I'm just trying to make sure this is the right link, because it should be. Let me make sure one more time. That's the wrong one there.
It's not a song about tourists from other states, people.
Right.
I just want to
Thank you. All right. So this is it. It's called, okay. So it should be, okay. It should be this one here. For some reason we had a problem with, there we go. All right. So without any further ado, let me go ahead and play this for you.
It's also a mecca for mosquitoes. The stream is still, the air is warm. You think you hear a whine, a searing hum within your ear that seems to say you're mine. The sky like soup is humid hot. You feel a pricking pin, ow, upon the veins that push against your summer moistened skin. Smack, oh, swat, nothing was got. They're quicker than you think. Swat, smack, what an attack. Your blood becomes their drink. The native secret to avoid being stung? Covering oneself in Urz's lardum. Bare fat. There's no escape. There's no reprieve. Your skin's a field of war. They colonize and terrorize its vulnerable shore. You slather up and lump around just like a fresh-skinned bear. It's somewhat strange the shapes that fat can make once in your hair. Oh, gag, oh, hand me a rag, oh, the smell is terrible. Gag, cough, don't brush it off, it makes life bearable. Oh, I see you have Urz's lardum in your hair. What a lovely shape. Greased, splat, covered in fat. It's barely wearable. At least in the fat of a beast, the summer's bearable.
And there we have it. I love it. It's the New Orleans theme song in the summertime. So let me see if I can stop the sharing for just a second, and we can yes, we'll move on to the next one after that. But that's a very cute, a number that is not like anything else. I'd say that's probably the most fun number that you get to do in this one, right, Cady?
It's the cutest, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a lot of cute in this one, right, guys? I mean, there's not much cute. I mean, I got to tell you, the thing that most attracts me to Marguerite is her heroism. I mean, that her pioneer spirit, and when you moved to the New World in the 1600s, you were moving into darkness, forests, beasts, natives. You were moving into just such unknown territory, and this was a woman who did it wholeheartedly, and got her hands dirty and her skirts dirty, and that's what I responded to most. So yeah, that's definitely one of the sweet parts, is that she did have a great sense of humor, which was the one thing you can really get from reading about her. There's not a lot written historically about her, except when you do hear people talk about her who loved her, they do talk about her sense of humor.
Now, when she made that journey from France to quote unquote New France to Canada, there were a number of people who died. I mean, it wasn't that long a voyage, but there were a number of people who died along the way. And I know that Anton and Michael had to have written some gravitas into the piece to connote that in some way.
Yeah, they did. I mean, what's beautiful again about Marguerite, there are a lot of souls lost. There were a lot of souls being lost for many reasons in the 17th century. It was a very hard time to live. You didn't live long anyway. But making that crossing, there were plagues and other diseases, and simply there was a lot of superstition that could kill too, where people would fling themselves off of ships because they believed something was bad was going to happen. And she was steadfast in her faith in the church and in her God. And one thing that she had to make it.
Yep, go ahead.
What am I hearing?
Nothing. I'm trying to make this stop. There we go. Go ahead.
She made it work for herself, and she inspired others with her faith, which really, at the time in the Catholic Church, women were cloistered behind walls, and that was the one thing she didn't want, was to be cloistered. So she wanted to move to New France to bring women out from behind the walls. So she was not just a pioneer in that she had, created a city and a homestead. She was a pioneer, and she was a feminist. She was somebody who, and I get back to Anton's feeling about Montreal, and I love Montreal, and all my friends up there are gay. I mean, they're and so gorgeous. I mean, everybody's gorgeous, gay, and inclusive, and that was she, as well as she understood at the time, it had to really practice tolerance and inclusion. I mean, we do talk about colonization and the rest of it, and she, who's to say it was such a different 400 years ago. But she had to, her faith and commitment, and other people's too. There are a few people who really contributed to it, according to the lore that we do know, the history that we do know. But the losing souls was very serious, and she, I always felt like the way Anton and Michael approached it was she paid tribute to every soul lost, and really was affected by every soul lost, and it was so certain in the need for a new way to live and a new place to go, to not be so constrained the way she felt in France.
I want to play the next piece that we're going to do, and this is going to be see if I can try to get the volume down on it, because I guess
because the girl's loud.
Yes, well, that's all right. The problem is I'm trying to see if there's a way to do it without no. I'll have to just run it without and then put it back on. But anyway, let's just talk about it. But how did you get the I know you knew about her growing up in Montreal, Anton, but how did you get the pieces in terms of how did you flesh out what you wanted to do, what you wanted to say? Was it a combination of working out with Michael what you wanted to say and him coming up with the pieces? Or in other words, I always wonder about a team that works together. Do they say we need to have this here, or do they just go ahead and come up with music to match what is written out lyrically? In other words, how's the process done for you two?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a great question, and I think as I've spent most of my life being a playwright, and I sort of moved into musicals kind of midpoint in my life. And I remember Lynn Ahrens and Steve Flaherty were two of my teachers when I first sort of started doing musicals at the Dramatists Guild, and I sort of asked them about the collaboration, and Lynn said to me, it's different with every show. The show will dictate how it wants to be or how it needs to be written, and that's always really sort of stuck with me. And so this show, I want to say there's no such thing as actual truth in theater. There's only the experience of truth. And so I think if you're looking for a history lesson, like that's not what this show is. But I think for me, it's an emotional history lesson. And that the experience of the truth of life at that time is something that the theater can do in the way that a history book can't. The history book can actualize it. But so what I would say is that for this, the libretto or the book, the scenes sort of came first. I knew sort of these were the lily pads that I wanted to touch on, these sort of like sacred moments in her life, and I wanted to track, these sort of 12 moments in her 60-something years. And And then in that, I would be like, well, okay, so this is going to be a song, right? And this will be a song. And then I'm going to write this monologue in this scene. And then so when I knew like these song moments would be here, then I would talk to Michael and I would be like, so I think this song is about mosquitoes, right?
Right.
And I think like, so sometimes what would happen is Michael's like, well, here's like a theme that sounds like mosquitoes. And then I would write to it. And then there'd be like, and then I'd sort of like maybe write a section, like the bridge section, as we would call it, that wasn't in the theme he sent me. And then he would write to that and we go back and forth. So sometimes it was like, and I'm making this up, Michael, maybe I'm remembering it incorrectly, but something like First Fruits, which I think you're going to play, that came out first as a lyric, which I don't often write lyric first, but that almost felt like this poem to the dead in the way that Cady just so beautifully talked about it.
And that was actually
like,
to a scrap of music that I didn't even know would be a song. I remember I had sent you something. I was on vacation somewhere and had just been playing around on the piano and sent him that and said, does this do anything? And then it wasn't even the full phrase. It was like the interval, I think. And then you came back with the full song.
And it sort of like started me off.
That.
So
yeah.
It's, it just sort of like sometimes there's a scrap of music, sometimes there's a whole piece. Sometimes there's a scrap of lyrics, sometimes there's a whole piece, and you just sort of go back and forth. But I like that because then as you sort of work it out, we sort of start with these pieces and then we kind of roll together into one voice. And I feel like that's what's actually important, right? Is that the music is the emotional subtext of the lyric. And so they want to be telling the same story just in their own voices. And so there needs to be, Michael and I need to be on the same page in this sort of kind of, forgive me, but like spiritual way. So I think if you just say, here's the lyric, do it, or here's the music, do it, it never really works out that well because you have to sort of roll into each other as collaborators.
From the time that you started in with Second to None 2017, and it was fleshed out, and before that actually with Cady as the reading, etc. Has it been trimmed, or did you add more to it in 2017 before you did it in New York again as a full-fledged musical?
It was the book got trimmed because like it was like, oh, the songs are really where the heart is, and so it was sort of pulling back on some of the dialogue and the monologues to really let the songs sort of do the work, which I think is necessary. And then we did scrap a song and add a new song for New York, but it's just that sort of like shaping it and reducing it, right? Like balsamic vinegar always tastes better in a reduction.
All right. So I'm going to, there's a little commercial that's going to go on here. So I'm going to talk over the commercial and just not let it stop me from putting this on. And we're going to listen to the next piece, which will be Heads Will Roll. And maybe you could tell me what this is about. Do you know what? Could you tell me what that is?
This is when so Marguerite and her congregation had sort of befriended the Algonquin and the Huron, but the Iroquois were enemies of the Algonquin and Huron tribes. And so the Iroquois sort of surrounded the fort because they were unhappy that the congregation that Marguerite was dealing with was sort of trading with their enemies. And so this is a series where the people who had come over from France were sort of locked into a fort and were sort of at war with the Iroquois, but weren't capable of being at war with them. So Marguerite sort of goes out a little bit Joan of Arc and tries to save the fort herself.
All right, it's called Heads Will Roll.
Oh boy.
Hold on, let's make sure. It's not showing, right? Let me go back. All right, one more second. I'm going to bring it back. There we go. Sorry about that. My fault. I did not share it properly. Now we can share it. There we go. Science.
Daylight breaking across the fields, and the crows are calling to the breeze, and women are ripping roots from pastures on hands and knees. The Iroquois are angered, Algonquin have been hiding in our homes and in our schools by our faith. They are abiding. We've been allied with the Huron, and though we have been peaceful, this peace breaks their home. So now they want heads to roll. I see smoke rising in the distance, and I hear screaming on the breeze, and I run right into the pasture while others flee. Just as I arrive there, a tall one lifts his hatchet. He tries to knock me down, but I'm quick enough to catch it. We fall onto the ground, and I grab onto his manhood, and I take control. He fears his head's going to roll. I am not afraid to die. If God wants me, I won't cry. They can live.
Hello. Oh, well.
That was a little rough. Did we lose Alan completely?
I think
Okay,
it's
guys,
all right.
so it's up to us. It's up to us.
Here he comes back. Oh, now it's
Go on, just us. All right, so what do we want to talk about?
Can I just say one thing? I know no one could really hear that song, but one thing that's so exciting about working with Cady, I don't know if you know the Spanish poet Lorca, but he talks about this thing he says that all Spanish artists have, which is this thing called duende, which is these art sounds that come up within their soul. And he writes about this woman this 80-year-old woman who went to a dance contest once. And there were all these like beautifully trained Spanish dancers. And then she went out and she just sort of like shoved her hands down and like shook her shoulders, and she won the dance contest because she had duende. And I hear that song, which I know none of you really heard. But it's just like Cady's like fire just comes out in that, and her duende comes out, and it's wonderful. And I will say it's interesting because a lot of the research about Marguerite is from Catholic scholars. And it always struck me as interesting that the Catholic scholars actually wrote that she went out and grabbed the manhood of this one guy who was attacking her. And I was like, well, that's how duende Marguerite was. If these Catholic scholars are writing about that moment, obviously she has a lot more in her too.
Well, that's
so we knew that had to be a song.
Yeah, because that's how much she believed in this. She was ready to do anything. The song really talks about while everyone else is fleeing, she's running in. Just like, nope, we got to take care of this. What a complicated war they found themselves in with the several different tribes and everything else, not cut and dry at all. She just knew that she needed to save her version of what was right for the time and the place and the people. And it included the Huron and the Algonquin. Those poor
Katie, have you
Iroquois.
ever done a one-person show before?
Have I done what?
A one-person show before?
Not like so much scripted. I've done my own stuff.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, but not so much fictional script, that kind of thing. I don't think.
Well, I'm gonna try to play this last number, which is the pièce de résistance. This is the I don't even know if you could call it the 11th hour. But it is the ballad, the theme, the rousing,
it's
one
the
more
anthem.
One day more, right? The anthem, right? It's the same thing from Les Miserables, one day more, right? It's and again, I'm going to try my best to make this thing happen, but
I'm gonna definitely mute myself just because we were getting hearing so many different things.
Yeah, I thought you all were muted to begin with, so. But let me see if we can get this, because this is such a beautiful number, and your voice is so fantastic, Cady. I just really am. Yeah, I can get it to go now. I'm pretty sure I'm just going to go ahead and share it out. Let's make sure that we get this thing, because this is fabulous, and And again, let's see if we can get it. And again, it keeps going without my asking it to. So let's see if we can.
Bleeding color like the sun. Autumn falls from the maple trees. Something ends, something else has begun. There's a change, you can see it all about. And within, you know without a doubt, everywhere a beauty abounds. Hear it in the shimmering sounds. See it in the sights dancing wild in your eyes. Something says you're home once again. Hold your breath and count up to 10. Remember all that you have become. Then say it from your heart. Je suis Canadienne. Mountains watch over his story. Prairies roll across the land. Lake as deep as a mystery. She is bold, she is ever so grand. And you feel as the wind it twists about. In your heart there is love without a doubt. Everywhere a beauty abounds. Hear it in the shimmering sounds. See it in the sights dancing wild in your eyes. Now you know you're home once again. Hold your breath and count up to 10. Remember all that you have become. Then say it from your heart. Je suis Canadienne. Here I am stronger, I am free. Each step an opportunity. Every forest grows from just one single tree. This is my destiny. Everywhere beauty abounds. Hear it in the shimmering sounds. See it in the sights dancing wild in my eyes. Now I know I'm home once again. Tout est beau et tout est bien. Oh mon cœur, je suis Canadienne. I feel it in my heart. Je suis Canadienne. I know deep within. Je suis Canadienne.
Thank you very much. I think it's working now. That's beautiful. I mean, it's just absolutely gorgeous. And there you are, Cady, in all your splendor. Let me see if I can stop this thing from sharing, and we can have you come back on. That's just really beautiful.
Thank you so much, Alan.
Thanks.
We have a little bit of time. I really wanted to play the very end where you kind of like have that last hold that last note one more time, the reprise, which is the final number, I guess. But before I do that, I want to thank y'all for being here tonight. We don't have much time left.
Thank you, Alan, for having us.
Other pictures I wanted to share. Yeah. I want everybody to know that there's a wonderful show out called Cady Did. And let me see if I can get him. There we go. Stop. It's just one of those things. I don't think I'm going to be able to do what I wanted to do, but I wanted to let everybody know about Cady Did. And there you are. And I have another picture of there you are again with everything going on. And I had a great picture of you and Vianne Cox, who is such a wonderful star as well.
She's great.
And the other, for people who didn't get a chance to see it, and I need you to let me know when it's going to be available again. But you did a one-woman show, although I know you had background as far as it goes, but on Peggy Lee, correct?
Yeah. That's it's complicated because
is that something that we might be able to see?
We're not sure. Somebody else
Go
owns
ahead.
her life rights because they're making a movie. They're having Michelle Williams is starring as Peggy Lee,
Oh.
and she'll be fantastic. And ours is obviously very different than a biopic. It's more like Marguerite. Imagining what Peggy Lee might want to say if she came back. But hopefully, probably in more like a couple of years, though.
Well, all I can tell you is, this has been a great pleasure of me to. I'm sorry that the technical aspects are not as 100% as I'd like, but it's a one-man show here. This is basically what you see is what you get. And I'm trying my best to pull out all the stuff.
I do know what that's like.
So
yes,
yeah. So again, Anton, Michael, fabulous work. I'm gonna do my best to keep promoting this for everybody. And again, I appreciate you being here tonight. Cady, thank you for being here tonight. If I can, I don't know whether I'm going to be able to be successful, but I want to end, if it's possible, with the the reprise of what we just heard. And if I can get that to show up in the chat, I'm going to try to go one more time to see if it will work. And hopefully we can get this thing shared out, the last part of it, and then we'll end the broadcast. And hope everybody will go out with a rousing finish, as it says. Again, those of you who are interested, a digital download and a compact disc are both available on Broadway Records. And just go to BroadwayRecords.com. I'm sure to get the the information is what it costs, etc. But for me, I got it right away, and I wanted to make sure that I was able to be one of the first people to get it. But I wasn't sure it was good because it keeps promoting digital downloads. It is available on a CD-ROM, but you got to look for it. The first thing they're going to try to get you to do is get the digital download. So in any event,
I'm waiting for my copies.
Okay. I don't know if to blame it on. There we go. Fantastic. All right. So we're going to end up with Je suis Canadien, the reprise. And again, I want to thank all of you for being here. My guest tonight on the show, none other than Cady Huffman and Michael Cooper and Anton Dudley for being here with me as well. Let's make sure that we can get this this shared out, and we'll end up the whole broadcast with this this wonderful reprise of Je suis Canadien. And I'm talking because I'm still waiting for the thing to show up, and eventually it will. Eventually it will. No, this is, one of the other pieces I wanted to play was Fresh Fruits. That shows up now. So, but that was great too. The First Fruits that you did. So there's a whole lot of stuff on this. I mean, there's 30 tracks. You're not getting, just a couple of songs here. It's not an EP. This is a fully realized musical. And I certainly hope that people will avail themselves of getting this and adding it to their collections. And I'm almost there, Cady. I apologize, but it's almost there. It's coming and it's spinning and it's doing its little thing here. And okay. Sometimes you got to crack eggs to make mayonnaise, right?
That's it.
All right. So let's see if we can get this last one out here. And I know that it's just being problematic for me. Okay. We just got to get down to 30, and 30 is coming, but 27 is where it is, and it won't go any further. Okay, so, all right. Yep, it's just one of those things. I don't know why it's doing this, and
you just have to buy the album, and you can hear it.
Yeah,
that's it.
I'm just gonna. Right? That's Heads Will Roll, isn't it? In this, I'm trying my best. This is First Fruits. It's First Fruits that was there. So, no. Anyway, guys and gals, I'm going to say goodnight. I'm going to try to give up right now, but you heard what it was. I'll figure it out. Y'all have a good night, and let's go out on a high note. Ha! So there you go. Y'all take care.
Thanks, Alan.
Y'all take care.
Thank you
very
so much, Alan.
Take
Good
care.
to see you guys.
Thank you,
All
Alan.
right,
guys.
All right.
Have a great
All
night.
right.
Good night.
Bye now. Get one way or the other, I promise. For those of you who are stick around, guys, everybody's going to disconnect. Whoever is still with me, thank you for being here. And again, I'll see you all at the theater.